And here we are with Teanna Taylor. How are you getting on? How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Happy Easter. I'm not sure what
Happy
the
Easter.
Spanish is for that, but here we are. So there's a lot going on in this conversation before we even start. So again, Spanish, Northern, Bucks, the whole spectrum of things. So regards to your style of jiu-jitsu, have you found it change much regards of your traveling, the way you've changed different gyms whilst you've been living your life as such?
Definitely. My partner is my coach and he knows me better than anyone in the world.
Mm.
That can come with some problems though. They say you shouldn't teach your other half to drive. And I kind of think to a degree it's the same with jiu-jitsu because you don't necessarily have that level of patience. But because he knows me so well and he knows my game so well, he dedicates a lot of one-on-one time to me, working on my game plan. In the classes, he'll say, okay, I'm teaching this today, but this won't be part of your game. And it's really developed a lot since, well, as most people do, since white belt. And so it's kind of a blessing and a curse having your coach as your partner. But in my case, particularly with competitions, it's really good. Really good.
That was a very well rehearsed answer, just in case. You covered every base there, I think. You got the honesty, and you may say it very amicably as well. I'm impressed with that.
That wasn't rehearsed at all. I didn't know you were going to ask me that question.
I was going to say, it seems almost like, okay, I got it prepped just in case. You got the right sort of tone for everything. I'm very impressed with that. You make a very good politician.
My partner never listens to my podcast ever, because he says he has to listen to me talking all day. So the last thing he wants to do is listen to me talking even more. So yeah.
I'll leave him with that. I'm not going to dig in that too much. But regards of the idea of a game developing, and also this sort of vein that when you start, you don't know what you don't know. How are you with trying new techniques, even if they're not tailor-made for you, so to speak?
I try my best in the class to get it. And I have very honest conversations with my partner, but so do the rest of our team. It's not just me. It's just probably easier for me because we live in the same house. We spend a lot of time together. I'll say, is this something that I'll realistically be able to do? And he'll say yes or no. But that conversation is also open to everybody in the club. And I'll always attempt to do something. I like to attempt it more times than he likes me to attempt it because I don't like him giving up on me. But sometimes, because I'm the kind of person who needs to drill something many, many times before it sticks. So there are techniques I do now that a few years ago just would not even have been in my game plan at all. And I say to him sometimes, persevere, stick with me. I'm trying my hardest here. But once I get a technique, I've got it. But it just sometimes takes me longer than other people.
Now, again, there's so much in that with the way you understand the way you learn, but also how you apply. So when you're doing the drills, for example, is it just like wrestling style, just volume and amount of reps? Is it very slow, very heavily technique detail orientated? How do you like to drill, full stop, off the bat, sorry?
For me personally, well, at the moment I'm injured, so I'm not training. I'm 3 weeks post ACL surgery, and it's my second ACL surgery in 13 months.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, discount.
But I co-run the club, so I actually don't pay for my training. But it depends what we're drilling. If it's something I feel quite confident with, everything is broken down it's like a story. So we start with drilling a basic technique, adding a bit more than finishing with submission. But that's more of a technique. For drilling, if it's something I don't feel particularly confident with, I will drill it quite slowly and then build up speed. But it's just that initial feel it. If it's something like that I've never done before and I look at the demonstration, I think, oh, am I going to be able to do that? I'll just go through it really slowly. But then I've learned that some things are actually easier to do if you do them more quickly. So that's the flip side of that. But it really depends what the technique is, because you can do some things too slowly and the other person can escape. Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, there's the whole spectrum with this. And the reason I like a lot what you said there already, because about telling a story, because the way you just people explain anything, you tell a story in some way, shape or form, or how you explain
Yeah.
something. This happened because so-and-so happened, A led to B to C and so on and so forth. But then also the same vein that you're drilling with that kind of, I don't know, resistance, a sort of pace that I used to use the whole thing of it's technical. You're in slow, like old man jiu-jitsu, but it's not working. And people more athletic saying, well, it's not in the point, it didn't work. It doesn't matter if it's more technical, it didn't work. I like how you managed to distinguish both those things with that. But when you say
Yeah.
tell a story, are you more action, reaction, follow action, or what is your story per se when it comes to drilling?
Well, I like to know the name of the technique first that we're doing, and we'll drill part of the technique, okay, as a class, and then we'll regroup. We'll add a little bit more to it. So again, we start right at the beginning and add on this next bit. Everyone's got that? Cool. We move on, add a little bit more, still starting at the beginning. Or depending what it is. When we've done some crucifix stuff, we've started from certain positions, and then at the end, we've gone right back to the beginning. But for me, that's how things stick, because if I've been at another club I used to train at, I used to say to the instructor, I haven't quite got this. Can I stick to the previous technique? And he would say no. And for me, that wasn't conducive to my learning, because how can I do the next part if I haven't got the previous part correct? So it's bit by bit by bit. Each time, by going back to the beginning, it's reinforcing what we've done before, and then adding a bit more to the story and finishing with the submission.
And again, when it comes to the way your coach manages your development, and again, it's a very proactive thing as well. You've got to say, okay, this isn't working for me. You've sort of interrupted that and having your own sort of, okay, I'm not in the flow right now. Please, can I adjust? And again, as much as it comes across very much the coach being, I don't know, again, going against what you would need, you never really know the bigger picture that in retrospect maybe makes more sense. You just go through the motions, then picking up. Again, it's an interesting way how you can perceive it and how it can really, I don't know, pan out. And also found it quite ironic.
Yeah.
You mentioned the crucifix on Easter Sunday, but anyway, that's another thing in itself.
Actually, it was only yesterday I was talking to my coach about my jiu-jitsu, and what was it I was saying? Because I'm going to be out for a little while, and I'm devastated about it. I'm really upset, but it's just something that I have to do, because I can barely walk at the moment, let alone train. And he reframed it for me, and he said, well, think of it as in when you come back, you're learning from, what did he say? It wasn't exactly from a different standpoint, but I get to relearn a lot of things, because I had a full ACL rupture last year. I started to recover and I got back training, but with COVID, I didn't compete, and I wasn't in a position to compete anyway. But then I was on the mats quite a bit, and it was frustrating for me because we were doing things like deep half guard, crucifix, etc. And then I could only do half of the techniques because I couldn't be on top, because it caused too much pain in my knee. So he reframes my thinking a lot when how I think about jiu-jitsu, which he thinks borders on unhealthy at times, because I'm just obsessed with self-improvement. It's not about the belts for me, because the belts will come. I just want to be a better fighter than I was before I was injured. But at the moment, that's not possible because I can't even train. But obviously in a competition, you're competing against another woman or another girl. But in that sense, yes, you want to beat that person. But really, I want to be the best fighter I can be, because I've had a lot of negative attitudes towards my jiu-jitsu. I've always been seen as the underdog, and that's starting to change a bit, but that never really goes. So I'm obsessed with self-improvement. So I have very frank conversations with my instructor, which is good.
I mean, this is going to be, let's get comfy. This is going to be an interesting one. So there's so much in that I want to get into. Where do we even begin? Okay, so
I talk a lot, don't I?
No, it works very nice on the podcast, so don't worry too much. I want the time was to change that. This isn't the time. But steer on that skid right now. That's fine. But regards to self-improvement, I like the reflection. I like the way it's. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to break down what you said and why I like it. Then I'm going to let you go on another tangent. But that's one thing actually. again, that kind of reflection, that point of you want to improve yourself, and the belts are a bright byproduct. Again, people think they do things to be happy. No, you do your own development, and happiness is the byproduct. The same way your progression is your priority, and the belts are a byproduct of that, and so on and so forth. I like that a lot. And again, in competition, it's not even so much that the person is that relevant. It's more just, this is an instrument for me to explain who I am right now and demonstrate that against a completely an unpredictable variable, in the sense of you don't know, you can't rehearse certain things. Again, that's regurgitate information. This is something you're having to proactively show your understanding, which is why it's got so much more weight behind it. And on top of that, again, I like the way you're talking about your internal voice and the way you manage your attitude towards jiu-jitsu as a whole. And I'd like to go a bit more into that, as to how you initially started perceiving jiu-jitsu and competing and being a fighter, to how you are now, and the sort of things that cause these changes.
Yeah, well, when I first met my partner, he was a purple belt and I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu at all. I started doing jiu-jitsu about 1.5 years in, but I'd travel around the UK with him to competitions, and I paid a lot of mind to particularly the women. I was watching these women white belts, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're absolutely amazing. I have no idea what's going on when in like techniques wise, but I knew that if you tap, that means it's over. That was about the extent of my knowledge. But something I noticed is that some of these fighters, both male and female, when they lost a fight, they were so deflated, but then they had to get up and do it again. And that's when I was doing mindset training for about 3 years before I got into jiu-jitsu, but that's when I realized how applicable mindset training is for jiu-jitsu. Because if you've just lost a fight, but you've got to step up again, you might feel deflated because you've lost a fight, but you've got to find that grit in you to get back on those mats and give it your all, and kind of have selective amnesia about what went wrong in the first fight. So I've forgotten what the question was, forgive me.
No, it's more so the mindset change there. But anyway, that's more of a staple reference point. I like how you're talking about having to pick yourself up and crack on once you've made a mistake, to then not let that mistake deter the momentum of the collective tournament.
Yeah.
And what is your reference point for that? Any experience you've had to try to compartmentalize that kind of emotion to be able to perform?
This did actually happen to me in Valencia. I was in a category.
Valencia, there we are.
Pardon?
Clang, just drop it in there. Oh, in Valencia, I used
to live in Valencia. I used to live in Valencia 15 years ago. But I did a competition there in 2019, and I lost my first fight. And I was in that exact situation. I had to pick myself up to then fight the second girl who I tapped. And so I got silver. But in that competition, that was really good for me, because the girl who I fought against first, she automatically got gold for winning against me. Because I lost against her, I got a second fight. So out of the three of us, I was the only one who got 2 fights. So that was a bonus, because obviously I've paid for the competition. I've had to pay for my hotel and all the rest of it. But in that particular competition, I did things on the mats that I didn't think, that when we did in training, I didn't think would apply to me. So that was a great learning experience as well. And that showed me that sometimes when I think, this is not going to be part of my game, in the moment, you just find yourself in a position that takes you back to class, and you think, yeah, actually, I can do this. And that's how I got the tap, actually, by doing a technique that I didn't think was going to be for me. So, but it is a lot of picking yourself up mentally, because it does get to you, because there's always really big crowds as well, and they're watching you, and they're watching your deflated face. So I make a point of never ever looking at the ground if the other girl's hand is raised. I never look at the ground, because you really do need guts to stand up and fight.
Again, there's so much in there. And one thing you've sort of touched on there, outside of the attitude towards presenting the whole thing, is the sort of, the momentum of a competition. You're having a match. It's a very different pace and different feel to training in the gym. As much as you can emulate X, Y, and Z, those mental blocks, those weird positions you find yourself in, thinking, how do I end up here? I'm upside down with lapels left, right, and center. Where am I? but you can't just sit there and just enjoy the view. You've got to be able to be proactively keep on moving. And again, even techniques you aren't overly confident with, you think, okay, shit, let's get an answer pretty quickly. And being able to be so aware and so active and so confident whilst everything's going on, to also have that poker face, like you're saying, that even if it doesn't pan out, just still remember what it took you to get to where you were. And again, there's so much depth in that. And as well, you're talking about there, like you've had 2 fights. I mean, I've paid X, Y, and Z to get it. I'm not going to wait. I will have matches with everyone left, right, and centre. I've paid good money to get the pleasure. I'm going to make sure I get the most out of it.
I really disagree with coaches telling, this is my personal opinion, I do not agree with coaches telling their students that competing is just like an open mat at another gym, because it's not. It really is not. You don't have 300 plus people watching you. When you go to open mats at the gym, that it may be, okay, it's more competitive, but it's not the same as competition. And I'm really honest with that, because I compete a lot. So I'm really honest with our team about that, because if you go in thinking it's this,
a playful spar with a stranger, it's not.
Yeah, it's really not. It's really not. So I'm really against telling newbies that, because it just isn't true. It isn't true.
Well, this is kind of it, because again, it's not even just the actual role itself. Yes, mechanically, it's still just jiu-jitsu. It's the same thing you do every day, but that's not what gets you. Like, how many matches have you lost to someone who isn't better than you just because the moment is just so like, I don't know who I am. What is jiu-jitsu? You completely just get so overwhelmed and confused. Like, how do you stay composed competing now?
I have learned to tune out noise. So if I'm in a stadium, and this happened at the Europeans as well, I've trained my mind to tune out all noise except for my instructor's voice. So everything is it until I get to, when I'm at the mat side, I do get nervous. But as soon as that referee goes like this, I'm a completely different person. I'm much fiercer in comparison to when I'm in the gym. So I've tuned my mind to get rid of the crowd, the sound of the crowd, the sound of people cheering on my opponents. The only thing I hear is my instructor. Now that's taken quite a few competitions to do, but I'm very composed and I take direction a lot better in competition than I do in training. And it's just like I turn into a completely different fighter.
So let's go in that a bit deeper then. So regardless of who you are in the gym, but in competition rounds versus an actual competition, when that adrenaline's overwhelming you, you're excited, you're anxious, everything in between, you get the sort of nod to sit waved on the mats. What is your initial thought process from that point onwards?
This is do or die.
Oh, chills. Everyone else feel that. I was good, I like that.
That's actually, I represent Hyperfly, and that's part of their mantra. I
like that. You can't teach her. I mean, with that attitude then, because people get so funny about it. Like, you see the was it Nestor Mallock the other week that someone's foot broken and was, oh, you shouldn't go that hard in competition. So, well, you kind of do. That's what you sign up for. It's sort of kill or be killed, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's a funny one. And
you can verbally tap. You can verbally. I like to verbally tap if necessary, because I cannot risk broken limbs and things. So
yeah, it's not very nice. It's a preference.
No.
But even then, so obviously how you train is how you compete, and everyone sort of reluctantly says, you don't rise to your expectations, you fall to your training standards, and so on and so forth. And it's more, how do you make that applicable, what you're doing in the gym, even with a different mindset, to be able to apply with that extra sting and things? Do you see what I mean?
Well, I have a competition playlist, and I listen to that every day before training, every time I train. So it's like my mindset is always competition. I need to kind of chill out a bit, I think, but I'm always thinking competition. Even when we're just in the gym. I don't like my instructor's playlist, I'll be honest. It's too chilled.
Too nice.
But yeah, but I think, it all comes back to mindset. I'm always thinking about what is the next competition I'm going to do? When is it? I don't look up my opponents. I'm not interested in them. Although there was one occasion where that would have been pretty handy, because I was put against a black belt judoka who was on the UK squad.
That's good.
And But I didn't look her up, so I didn't know this. But she didn't throw me, she foot swept me. So that was over pretty quickly. But yeah, in the gym, I'm still thinking competition. So it's quite easy for me to make that transition onto the competition mats.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. So similar to sort of, say, Manchurian Candidate kind of feels, where it's like, okay, you're getting so subconsciously programmed that when you hear something, you sort of switch it on. Like, again, this sort of, when I say competition mindset, it's not even just on the mats, it's the build up, it's the training to be in competition mindset. I love this so much. So the playlist, how long is it? Is it just a case of you hear a song on the way to training? Is it X amount of songs now I can train? How does that work for you?
I'll start in the house when I'm getting ready. And if I walk to the gym with my partner, I'll say, I'm not going to talk to you because I need to get in the zone.
Is that your excuse?
Sometimes that goes down okay. Sometimes it doesn't.
Lead balloon.
But I have a competition playlist which is solely music, and I have a mindset BJJ playlist which is very, very long, and those are for the days like now when I can't train. And a lot of them I've had for years but are applicable to jiu-jitsu as well, just like never giving up. And if you see my Instagram, you can see I'm a sucker for a positive quote. I know a lot of people hate that though. They think it's like toxic positivity, but my Instagram is for me.
The fuck toxic positivity?
It's just some term that's come out from people saying, oh, you know, it's actually has the opposite effect. But my Instagram is my Instagram. It's not for you. It's not for anybody else. It's for me, because I need picking up sometimes. I'm not Superwoman. I have down days. I have days where I'm definitely the nail in the gym and not the hammer. You know, that happens all the time. So I've never thought about quitting though. Never.
I mean, with that, again, there's so much in that. I love it. I mean, this whole thing about Instagram being for you, it's more of a journal, isn't it, as such? Because again, it's something this is how I feel. This is a tournament I performed at. And again, albeit early white belt days, you see drills you used to think, oh, I'm cringing now. But the fact you're cringing is more so, okay, I've come on this much further. That's why you keep everything up there. And again, I've got a bronze in this tournament. Yes, it's not gold, but this is a prominent moment where I learned X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And also about toxic positivity. Again, it's a huge thing I really like about your sort of content. A huge reason I wanted to get you on is that kind of proactively being positive, proactively being, you know, I'm here in the trenches, but I'm also, it's not a grind. Because people always have the whole kind of, I embrace the grind. So what is the grind? Grind sounds uncomfortable and horrible. I don't do this because I hate it. I like this.
I think it has embraced the journey. The journey is going to have setbacks. The journey is going to have obstacles. You might get injured. You know, life events happen. You might lose your job. Some people can't pay for training. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And it's about how you handle all those misfortunes. I think that's what shapes people, because some people will quit. Some people, well, a lot of people quit, especially at blue belt. But I think it's how you handle all of that. And I've had quite a lot of negative stuff happen to me, both particularly with my health. And I know there are some people who are surprised I'm still going. I don't mean alive, I mean training.
I don't want to dig too much deep in that. I thought that would go as far as you wanted to go with that.
Not dying. No, I'm good. But because I was so bad at the beginning, I was so bad. And when I came to Madrid, I was still really, really bad. And I started to pick up once my partner trained me. But again, it's the dialogue around my jiu-jitsu that really motivates me a lot, because I remember being at a particular competition in Malaga. Sorry to place drop again. And there are a lot of us in Madrid training at a particular club, and the instructor went to Brazil and just never came back. So that's how we started up our clubs. But a lot of the guys and girls who were training at that initial club didn't want to train with us. So at the beginning, it was just me on the mat with my partner. And there was a competition about 3 months later, after this happened. And they assumed that I was still the same fighter as 3 months previous, but I had been training with my partner for 3 months, and it was just me on the mat. So it was just like getting privates. And I rocked up to this competition, and this guy sees me and says, "Oh, is Gareth," that's my partner, "oh, is Gareth competing?" And I said, "No, I am." And he goes to me, "You are?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And then I had a lot of people from my old team sat by the mat side, and it was a straight final. And I won in less than a minute by triangle. And afterwards, I saw another guy I trained with, and he said to me, "Oh, Teanna, what happened in your fight?" Because I was sending a text. I looked up, the fight was over, and I assumed you got disqualified. And that was the first reaction that it wouldn't be me who would be able to compete because I'm not good enough. And secondly, I did compete, but it was over so quickly I couldn't possibly have won. So I'm used to stuff like that. I'm used to being laughed at in class. My takedowns used to be so bad, people would snigger and turn away because they didn't want to look at me. And nothing was ever said by the instructor about that, because there's me working my ass off trying to like get better, and to have people laugh in your face is really horrible. But something kept telling me, keep going, don't give up, keep going with it. And I think as hard as it sometimes is to train with your partner, because of arguments and personality clashes and things, they know you the best and they know your game the best. And yeah, it was yesterday, he also said to me, "You have to trust that I know what's going to work for you and what won't." Because sometimes I say to him, "You give up on me too easy. We've done this technique in class, and just because I haven't got it in the first maybe 5 times, he'll be like, okay, maybe we need to move on now." So I'll say, "Can we practice this at home?" And he'll say, "That won't be part of your game." So he says, "You just need to trust," because he's a black belt. He's been in the game a lot longer than me, and he knows what my strengths are, and I need to play to those strengths. So I think I do need to trust him a little bit more. I just get a little bit pissy sometimes. I think that's what it is, if I'm honest.
Let's just go back a second. Yes, congratulations for your resilience and improving, but wow, that's a toxic environment if I've ever fucking heard one. I mean, if you're not in a position where you can fail often and well and then progress, you're not going to progress. The fact you had the grit and the mindset and the strength to actually overcome that kind of adversity, I mean, that's a good attribute to have, but you shouldn't have had to use it. I mean, the fact that environment was so toxic, I think that's just disgusting. The fact, one thing, people not seeing your progression and expecting your previous self to be the one performing that day versus the person who you were, that's one thing. But their attitude after the fact of still being disrespectful, they can just see you later, you know what I mean? But again, as much as I want this to be a more highlighting your achievements, this is definitely a moment to sort of think, okay, everyone listening now, if you're in a class where people are putting you down for trying things, you need to, have a word with either yourself, the instructor, or, in the gym or something, because that is not healthy. That is not what you want. Because again, you don't do this because it's where the money in the world is going to be. You do this because it's a passion, you love it.
Yeah.
And if your passion and love is getting tainted by people who aren't as, I don't know how you'd phrase that without sounding too much
supporting your process, your progress, and encouraging you, then that's not the gym for you. Definitely not.
This is a huge thing. Again, as much as obviously it's case by case, but again, I'm so sorry to hear you've been through that kind of environment, because I'm not going to pretend like I haven't been through a similar sort of thing. But again, it's how you've overcome that, and again, it's how you've been identified and how you've broken your own stigma of being, okay, I'm not that person with a shitty take. I'm not that person anymore. Yes, obviously it's still areas to work, but I'm not that person. Even if I was that person, I am a person, full stop. You do not speak to me like that. Again, it's understanding your value as a person, not even just your ability as a competitor. That's a separate thing entirely. Like, not being funny, like, why people say white belts, you think they're shit. So, well, you're a white belt. You aren't shit because you're performing the standard you're at now. What does make you shit? If you had a brown belt around your waist, you still can't sprint. There's a question to be asked, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? It's like, just have a day off, man. It's passion, a hobby. Call it what you want. You did it because you want to be. I like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, with sorry, I went a bit of a mad one. I've come a bit close to home there, but it's more how you overcome that and still that kind of. Because again, you preface the start of this conversation with you've been the underdog reluctantly, and it's still kind of a chip on your shoulder to an extent. And even then, how do you...
I don't mind being the underdog though, because people don't expect me to win. So that's cool with me, because if you're always the favorite to win, there's a lot of pressure with that. A lot of pressure. So I'm good. If people want to think I'm the underdog, that's cool by me. But I don't have a problem with that.
When I said chip and shoulder, I meant more so being undervalued than it was being underrepresented. Because again, if you're the underdog, again, it's win-win regardless. But it's more so the point of, okay, your standards are increasing, your abilities increasing, but again, being recognised for it in the same vein. But again, when it comes to understanding your competition mindset, understanding what's required of you, is something that came quite naturally to you. Is it something you've had to sort of trial by fire as such?
That came naturally because, as I said, I was doing a lot of mindset work before I got into jiu-jitsu, and all of it's applicable, all of it. So I think it's come quite naturally. I absolutely love competing. I would compete. I was competing about twice a month before I got injured. But then you get to the stage where you kind of burn out a bit. That's the only downside. Oh, actually, there's another downside. When you compete so regularly, and you watch back your fights, sometimes there's not enough time to go over your errors. Because as you said earlier, your opponent doesn't know your game plan. They don't know what you're going to do, but you know what you're going to do. And if something hasn't gone right, you don't necessarily have enough time to work on it if you compete that regularly. But then, because I had my full ACL rupture just 3 days after I signed up for the 2020 Europeans. I was really glad I got in so many competitions, because I started competing as soon as I got my blue belt. I didn't want to wait, because when you ever ready, you get a new belt, you're never ready. So I just thought, I'll throw myself in. There's no pressure on me. Pressure's on everyone else because they've had their blue belt longer than me. So yeah.
I mean, again, there's a lot in this. And one thing I want to sort of touch on there before, obviously saying about your mindset training versus applying it. This is sort of the reason I asked it, because as much as you've had the preparation without the pressure, once the pressure comes, it's like, everyone's great at giving advice until they're the one who needs the advice. It's like, no, shut up, I don't care, I don't want to hear it. Saying, well, you're the one who said it in the first place. You should say. But again, it's how you understand what these words really mean. Because again, you see the nice, frilly quotes. Again, we're both guilty of posting many of them. And it's the point of, okay, what do those words mean when push comes to shove? How do you apply that? So I like the way you're able to actually apply what you're saying and believing. So that's always very reassuring. Yeah. But one thing I want to sort of get into really is sort of identity as such. Because again, when you're competing so regularly, this is something so in your world. To then be put on the bench because of an injury, how do you find, I don't know, re-identifying yourself and having your own persona outside of jiu-jitsu for that time being?
Really, really lost. It's really tough. Really, really tough. Because I'm not able to work at the moment anyway. It's affected both surgeries affected my mental health quite badly. I actually lost my job because of my first ACL injury. And I took legal action against the university I was working at in Spain for unfair dismissal, because it's against Spanish law to fire someone while they're on sick leave. But I think they thought because I'm not Spanish, I wouldn't do anything, but they didn't know I was in a union. So I had all my legal representation, and I had to hobble in a full leg brace and on crutches just about 8 or 9 days after my surgery, when I should have been resting, to sort this out. And so that was really tough. I find being injured is really tough because I'm so passionate about it, and because I do compete a lot. So some of those photographs of the books that I'm reading that I sent you the other day, they are keeping me on track mentally. And this is why I think my partner thinks it gets a little bit unhealthy, because it's jiu-jitsu, you're gonna get injured. But I have taken my injuries badly, because I can't, when you can't barely walk, and that means you can't, and at the moment I can't stand on 2 feet unaided, so I can't even do bench press. I can't even do upper body in the gym. And I know there's a pandemic, but all our gyms have been open since last July. So people are training and I can't train. And that's, for me, it's really, really tough because all I think about is jiu-jitsu. It's on loop all the time.
And again, first and foremost, I'm sorry to hear about obviously the way it's been affecting you and again, your job as well. And where this gets really, I don't know, problem for a lot of people, because again, they see the positive side of things you're putting out, the positive side, how well I'm doing with everything. But again, this is the reality of it. Yes, this is all the way you should say things, just the way you should be handling things. But ultimately, however you're going to handle it is however you're going to handle it. There's no right or wrong way to do these things. And again, the fact you can be so honest and open about how you really do feel about how it's really affected you, I mean, that takes a lot of respect for that. And again, look, people listening are in a similar boat who think, oh, I'm not all happy and positive when I blow my leg out. I guess I'm a bad person. Said, no, your legs, you back at your ACL. I'm not surprised you're not feeling very happy about it.
Yeah, my thing is though, if you look at a lot of my stories on my Instagram, it's very obvious I struggle. I'm not someone to just display a highlight reel, because I think that's so false and it's not an accurate depiction of real life. I've competed and I've got a default bronze, for example. Oh, actually, I did get a default gold once when my opponent didn't make weight, but I will write that. I won't say, oh, I got gold, because I know a lot of people.
I won gold with a picture to the thing, and that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah, but people do that, and it's so dishonest. And I don't win every match or every competition, but I will still put up that I participated. And, no one wants a default. Nobody wants a default. But sometimes that happens because you might lose your first fight. Some people don't turn up. Unfortunately, that's been the case of me quite a lot, which has been really annoying. But I don't just put all the good things on. It's very obvious that I struggle, and I've been quite open that I do struggle with my mental health and other aspects of my health as well.
I mean, definitely it's good to have that kind of transparency, because again, when it comes to the value of these things, yes, they're plastic medals you're paying X amount to enter for, but the reason these have that much value is I've made the way, I fought through my emotions, anxieties, my struggles to get to where I am now, to then show up on the day as well, which is a separate challenge in itself, and then perform against X amount of athletes in front of me. So then this medal will be a couple of quid from whatever else. This means the world's me. I'll die for this. Yeah. I literally blew out all my joints to get to this point. I'm not going to let anyone take this from me. But again, for someone to say, look, I got a default one, look, I won, I'm a champion. Obrigado, Jesus. Blah, blah. It's like, nah, none of that.
People do it though, and I see it a lot, and it's just like, yeah. Okay, if you want to do that, cool. It's your Instagram page, but I just feel like people are kind of lying to themselves, really.
This is a huge point. And when it comes to you managing your mental health whilst going through all this sort of thing, what is your process? So say you wake up wanting to go and roll, you realize, oh shit, I still can't. And you get that sort of deflated feeling. What is your point from there where you're just stuck in bed a bit like, now what? How would you keep yourself in that sort of stronger headspace? What is your light as such at the end of this tunnel?
I think it's the fact that I got surgery 3 weeks after my MRI results in the middle of a pandemic. That's amazing. I went to a different hospital because the one closest to me in my catchment area told me the wait would be at least 9 months. So I kind of remind myself that, okay, I'm immobile now, but if I hadn't had the surgery, yes, I would still be training, but I would be severely limited in what I could do. So the good thing is I've had the surgery now, and the only way is up. So that, I say that, but reminding myself of that is a challenge. I'm not going to lie, that's not easy. It's often my partner who reminds me of that. And a real downfall in my character, I would definitely say, is that I look at how far I have to go rather than how far I've come. That's a real problem for me. And that's not just in jiu-jitsu, that's in quite a few areas of my life. So when I know when I go back on the mats, like right now, I would do anything to be able to train. And I say that now, but when I'm back on the mats and I'm not this like consistently competing blue belt fighter I was, I'm going to be frustrated with myself. Whereas now I would do anything just to be able to shrimp or something. So I am my worst critic, my harshest critic. I know that. But living with my coach is really, really good because he pulls me out. We have very different perspectives on things, very, very different. And he is my biggest support system for pulling me out of that funk and helping me reframe my perceptions. Because, well, I know how much pain I'm in. He doesn't know, but he can see. And just things like listening to music helps. I watch a lot of comedy. I absolutely love comedy. That helps as well. But yeah, you do get dark days, especially when, I mean, I'm just a blue belt. I'm no Fionn Davies. I'm no like world-class adult black belt, but it's still my absolute passion. And it means the world to me. I mean, that's partly why I changed countries, and not a lot of people do that for jiu-jitsu, especially when you're a 2-stripe white belt. So yeah, some days are better than others. Regarding support systems, I do talk to people in my team. One of my sponsors, Chris at XS Guard Mouth Guard, always checks in with me to see how I'm doing. Yep, he's on here.
Shout Chris.
He's really good. He checks in to see how I'm doing. But I've got generally quite a very close circle. I'm not a hugely sociable person. Outside of jiu-jitsu, I actually do very little and that's also why it's not good to be injured, because if you don't have lots of other facets to your life, then I know it makes me sound really boring, but if you don't have lots of other facets to your life, you don't have other things you can do instead. I've got weightlifting and jiu-jitsu, and all of my friends in Madrid, with very few exceptions, are in the jiu-jitsu community. So I was with some of them yesterday because it was really sunny. They had an open mat and we're going for drinks afterwards, and I joined them just to see them. But obviously all the talk is about jiu-jitsu and I can't participate, and it does make you feel down. But then I've just got to remind myself, this time round it should be a lot better than last year, because I didn't get rehabilitation or physiotherapy because the state of alarm was declared directly after my surgery. So I thought I was really lucky to get surgery in February last year, but in a way I kind of wasn't, because I developed fibrosis in my knee. I developed a lot of scar tissue because I didn't get the appropriate rehabilitation. So when I had surgery 3 weeks ago tomorrow, they removed all that scar tissue, and that was significantly limiting my movement. They sorted out my meniscus as well. So I start physio next week, and all being well, I should be okay.
Again, there's just so much in that. And again, I can only really empathize, can hear it in your voice about the amount of weight this has behind it, because it's not even just, again, it's a passion, a lifestyle. Again, it's not just a hobby, it's everything. It's your life, and it's how you can try to learn to live again as such. We live without your life, which is a very weird thing to even articulate. And again, when you talk about the system of doing this, I like the way it's so many layers and so many different avenues, because again, people treat mental health as a collective umbrella. I think it's on or it's off, it's yes or it's no. It's so much more intricate than that. And the way you're sort of explaining how the friendship groups, the time you're investing in these things, again, this is all you actually give a shit about. Obviously you've got your other values and everything else, but this is where the main energy is.
Absolutely.
And it's how you, again, always interrupt me if I'll get everything wrong, but again, the way you explain these things, it's so, you can really hear the weight of it. And I don't know, there's one thing you said there I think is a very interesting premise of you always look at how far you have to go, and it's discouraging, and again, it's a bit of a mental prompt. But let me flip down its head a little bit. There was a video, I can't think which black belt it was, but the concept of looking forward to your next stripe or belt is lost at black belt on beyond. So the idea that you still have all the belts to look forward to, like, it's not, I've got so much further, I get to go so much further to go. How exciting is that?
Yeah.
What does getting another stripe on your blue belt mean if you're a black belt who's been training for 10 years?
Yeah.
You get to get excited for you. Get to like, oh, squeaky bum time. Oh, coach is going to get some stripes out. Oh, one of those for me. Like that kind of stuff is like, wow, I get to still do that. As opposed to, oh shit, it's so much further. Oh my God, purple as well. Fuck that noise. No more warm-ups at least, but you know what I mean? It's all sort of comes. But it's such a, again, you're so in the trenches with it, in the eye of that storm, that having your partner and coach, again, very separate roles, also in the same person, being able to see that from the outside perspective, having that someone so close to you in both those worlds, again, that's invaluable to have that kind of, I don't know. It seems like you guys have quite a healthy relationship with separating the two. That at one point you were speaking from a coaching point of view to then from an actual partner point of view, from a person to person to a coach to a student. And again, that sort of tone switching is so important, because I feel where people get that wrong is they try to blend it as one big thing, which it just doesn't sound, even explaining it doesn't sound nice, let alone living in that. Obviously it's case by case, but yeah.
He definitely wishes I talk about jiu-jitsu less, definitely, because he'll often teach 3 classes a day, and I'll come home and ask him something. He's like, no, I'm done for the day now. But I think when you're really passionate about something, you can't have like a work-life balance. Anything you're really, really passionate about will unbalance your life. It will. And I think that can be positive or negative. And I like to think in my case, it's positive, because for my mental health, competing is the best thing, because I live in like quite a high state of anxiety. So when I compete, it's just like, let's go, let's do it. I can't tell you how much I love competing. I absolutely love it.
So this is where it gets so much, I don't know, where do we even go with this? So when you talk about being positive or negative, again, it's an absolute, and obviously it's perception, and obviously what you hold in your heart is what you see in the world, and that whole concept of, how you feel and what you believe. But I feel having that passionate enthusiasm is very different to just sort of pestering with questions. Again, it's just showing a willingness to learn. Yes, it might be a bit frequent, but at least it's that tone of it, not like, oh shit, I can't be asked, don't want to train, or why should I, or why haven't I got a stripe yet, or why haven't I done this yet, opposed to, oh, I get to do this, or can I do this, or can I do this? It's a very different sort of energy. So I feel that in itself, regardless if it's overwhelming or underwhelming or whatever it is, at least it's that tone off the bat, regardless of anything else. But one thing you said there, which I thought was so, I don't think you realize how prominent that was and so important, that living in an anxious state and that the most anxiety inducing thing gives you peace. Think about how powerful that is. That's something that overwhelms everyone, including me, especially me as well. That the idea of being in such a so I'm going to try and keep this a bit shorter than I already am, but the idea of anxiety, things being so overwhelming, all these many factors everywhere, or everything could happen. The fact all those eggs are now in this one basket, all your energy in this one event on this one mat is so focused. It's so anxiety inducing, it stops it, which I think is such a unique thing. And I think that's so powerful. The fact you can actually identify that and articulate that as well. I think that's powerful.
It's because, like I said, when I'm by the mat side, I am nervous. But as soon as I step foot on that mat, I'm so calm, and it is do or die. We're doing this now. There's no backing out. And I'm just excited. No matter how the match goes, I'm excited. I just want to do it. And it's such a flip from like the preparation and the run up, and and on the day it's just completely different.
But this is it again, it's everything else. And even after the result, win, learn, or draw, I hate saying that so much. That's such a cliche, cringe thing, but it's so true. But anyway, even regardless of the result, against the fact you've been through that storm, whatever happened, you then put everything you love, believe, who you represent, who you are at that moment in time on a platform to either be, beaten, victorious, or whatever it's going to be. Again, you made yourself vulnerable to give yourself a chance to grow, regardless of which direction it's in, regardless of what happens. That's why I don't feel people give competitors enough respect, regardless of the level, regardless of the platform. The white belt local tournament to the black belt worlds, again, it's all relative to the individual. There's so much power behind that.
Yeah.
Now, before I let you go and enjoy your Easter Sunday, I've got a few more questions for you. These are ones I ask everyone. And I want you to ask your version of these. So the first one is, there you are, about to compete. You're in the bullpen warming up. In walks you. What advice do you give yourself to compete with the best mindset possible?
Focus on playing my game. I'm not interested in her game. She's going to play my game. And that's how it's going to go. I might not necessarily win, but this is why I don't look people up, because I made that mistake at white belt. I looked up a particular competitor, and to be honest, I'd already lost the match before I'd entered the venue, because I was convinced she was going to beat me, and she did beat me. So my attitude is, I go in that bullpen, they've called me, I'm getting ready, I'm all weighed in. Okay, it's do or die. You play my game. I don't care what your game is. You play mine. That's how it's going to go.
Oh, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Chills. I feel a bit intimidated as well. We won't talk about that. Next question. This is a personal favorite. Post competition, got your gold medal, loving life, got your Instagram, got all your likes, living the best life. What is in the delivery basket, takeaways? What is the celebration meal? Talk to me.
So I don't really celebrate. I watch the footage back. And even if I've won gold, I've sometimes won gold in a way I'm not happy with. So for me, it's go over it with my coach next day, back in the gym, working on what I did wrong. No celebration as such.
Ooh, oh, that sort of changed the tone a bit. Regards like treat meals, that sort of thing anyway. Like regards, obviously post competition, again, your reaction to that is more so a moment where you're going to have an exception to your diet. What is your treat meal per se? Is more the question.
Probably chocolate.
There we are.
Chocolate and orange juice. Yeah, chocolate and orange juice. Because the only things I have to really, if I compete at under 58.5 or under 64, I'm kind of between the two. So the only thing, if I compete at under 58.5, the only things I have to cut out are biscuits, orange juice, and
chocolate.
Chocolate, yeah. They're the only three things. So I have orange juice, I have chocolate, but then because I've been eating really well, I start to feel sick quite quickly. So it's not actually that enjoyable.
I was going to say, why don't you have chocolate orange digestive and you're sorted, all your sort of stars align in one sort of.
That's a good idea. Good idea.
That kind of ruins the fun of it. But no, I get what you mean, where you sort of restrict these sort of sugars and then you get them all in one hit. You get a nice spike and you feel just disgusting. But anyway.
Yeah.
Little mercies. And the last one is day one white belt. All full of beans, so enthusiastic. What word of advice do you give to them to try to get them started on the right foot?
Never give up and keep showing up.
Less is more. Exactly what it needs to hear. Thank you so much for your time. Regards to sponsors, obviously there's one new shirt you want to shout out. Anyone else you want to shout out as well?
Yeah, shout out to Hyperfly Europe. They've got my back, and especially to Chris at Excess Guard Mouth Guards for always being there. He's awesome.
Fantastic. And your social media?
I am under Teanna _Taylor _BJJ. I'm one of those annoying people who has BJJ in my handle. I will not apologize for it. A lot of people do it. That's just what I do.
Stay on brand. So yeah, check out Teanna, check out the sponsors again. Excess Guard, they are supporting a lot of local athletes as well, different levels. Again, support the sponsors, support the athletes, and again, it helps keep everyone going. Check out the Fisticuffs sponsors. We've got the English Hypnotist, regards to your mindset and competing in business, whatever you're doing. Conversation with Rich can really help that game change, albeit from performance anxieties, self-sabotage, all sort of things like that. Also development, keep you in the right headspace. Obviously, we've got good performance nutrition, current running giveaway. If you're quick, you can get into it. That is my friend Dan Good, professional fighter. He's got his own gym. He's got his own clientele. Again, very established personal trainer. And now he's doing the supplement game as well. Quality products. And again, what more can you ask? Fisticuffs, we've got the shorts and rash guards in. Got a new stock arriving Gym Dependence Day, 12th of April. So stay tuned to the website for that. And other than that, thank you for your time. Stay positive, stay safe, and stay grateful.